Alrighty, welcome to a little bit of a strange video, something that you don't typically see on my channel. But this style of video is actually going to be something that I am likely going to make a lot more of, branching off different topics and other things that just generally interest me. But there's always going to be, as you can see, gameplay in the background because I will never let video games go. But truthfully, I do get very fatigued from video games, so that's honestly a big reason why like streaming can be hard because I'm not going to sit there and react to content the whole time. Like I'll do some, but sitting there for an entire stream reacting to content is just not really who I am. And if I don't feel like playing video games, I would literally rather just not stream. So the topic that we're actually delving into today is a more personal topic. Obviously, I can't speak on other people, and perhaps maybe you can relate. It's always nice to see or hear another person or party be able to kind of relate to the experiences that you've gone through. So I don't know if you guys find yourself to be very argumentative as people, but I sure as hell am. I used to be the type of person to argue to the very end about the most minute topics. It used to be so bad that I would actually get angry about the points that I was trying to defend. And like I said, the arguments tend to be pretty small scale, very minute details that I would sit there and I would die on these hills for seemingly no reason. I once had an argument with my ex-partner talking about why I believed cats were better than dogs. It was a hill I died on, and I actually still would die on this. But it was so vitriolic to the point where I was trying to actively change their mind because I felt that I was so in the right that their opinion just simply didn't matter to me. I would be so passionate about being correct that if I knew someone had the habit or the tendency to misremember things, because everybody does, we're human. I didn't know that then, but I would sit there and I would record the conversation, whether it be in a workplace environment or a romantic relationship. It was always, if I knew the person had a habit of misremembering things, I would record it. It ended up being so much easier to clear any conflict just for myself, but obviously you learn that that is probably the most toxic thing you can do as a person is to treat everything kind of like a court case. Now, to give a little bit more context as to why I kind of always treated things like court cases, I've been lied to a lot in my time. It's definitely been something that has warped my perception of other people and things. Obviously, since then, since maturing and growing up in X, Y, and Z, you kind of start to realize that not everyone's the same. And it's really easy to present anecdotal evidence because that's what you're used to. I mean, generalizations, if it applies to everyone, it can just make the person just feel safer. And I understand that a lot of my more toxic traits when it came to being confrontational was stemming from an insecure place, a place where I just didn't really feel comfortable because I didn't know if the other person had my best interest at heart. And so it kind of turned me into more of like a skeptic kind of argumentative person. And as I developed my oratory, I was more confident in letting people know, hey, I don't think you're 100% right in what you're telling me right now. And if you couple all of those kind of like insecurities and put them all into one place, you kind of notice how easy it can be to not only be stuck in your own head, but seem really condescending in almost everything that you say and do, especially if you're always just looking around for any kind of confrontation just because you don't trust people or whatever the case may be. As I grew older, I realized that it was important to accept myself, but also take accountability for my actions. I just always had a way to defend myself. As I grew older, I realized that being stubborn and argumentative is kind of just a part of who I am. It's important to learn as you go, and there are things that I have come to accept as I traverse many relationships, whether it be work, social, romantic relationships. But I also realize that a lot of damage can be done by being too argumentative. If you're in a romantic situation, you can make your partner feel as though they need to walk on eggshells in order to have a simple conversation with you. It can make you come across as arrogant and self-absorbed if everything turns into an argument or a confrontation in which you are the sole winner. You can have shortcomings at work if you are unable to be coachable and listen when necessary. I've been a victim of this many times. Sometimes I just don't believe in what my superior could be telling me, and I'll sit there and I'll argue the point. Simplest concept for diffusing arguments, I learned, is that two things can be true at the same time. I would often argue my point to no end because I was technically right. I may have had some truth in what I was arguing, but from another perspective, that person could have been correct as well. But I would typically leave no room to feel comfortable enough to express that. It can be damaging and otherwise unfair to your partner. So, curbing your ego and allowing yourself to be more receptive to criticism is really important. Side note, you likely see a lot of this on YouTube and social media because it's really a place where accountability doesn't have to be projected onto you. It can just be something that, well, that's just the internet, and you can use the internet as a scapegoat for shitty behavior. I personally do a lot of self reflection, and I always kind of consider to myself that I want to improve. And it's tough to talk on others because I don't know their thoughts or the life that they lead, but many people walk around being really fake to themselves, and that's kind of the same boat that I was in. I mean, consuming too much social media, at least in my case, made me way less receptive to self reflection, just mostly because everyone, I swear, portrays their best self on the internet, and it's the most fun and exciting thing ever. Other people see that and follow it or laugh, and it makes them feel better about themselves without knowing that they have a million issues that they may need to resolve themselves. I like to be right. I really do. As time goes on, I've taken a lot more pleasure in knowing that the reasons that I've won arguments wasn't because of intimidation or because I would be so relentless about an irrelevant issue that the argument would just be lost, but it's because I actually made an effort to find common ground and an actual compromise as a much more productive and healthy way of traversing a confrontation. There's a lot of value in critiquing yourself. I think if you find yourself being similar to me in any way, it's important to not ridicule yourself or be too harsh. Self loathing and self hatred accomplish nothing. And if you feel like you're so argumentative to the point where it can become destructive in your own personal life, there's a distinction that needs to be made if you are a person who does a lot of self reflecting. It's holding yourself accountable and criticizing yourself so much to the point where it depletes any self confidence you may have had. Make an attempt to understand and really listen to what any critiques are about you. Don't turn something into an argument because you felt attacked. I'm a victim of this, and I feel like a lot of people are as well. It's very easy to take something someone said in the wrong way. Own the way you are. This segment may be a little bit off topic, but be open about the way you are. If you really can't control something that you have or are dealing with, then it's important to make sure that you are open about that and communicate it effectively, regardless of how the other person may or may not perceive you. If you know that you're someone who disagrees with people often, that's fine, but you don't have to be rude or cruel about it at all. As you grow, you can learn to concede your point when you're in the wrong, and your life is going to be a lot better for it. Now, if you do find yourself relating to literally everything and being like, yeah, I'm a fucking argumentative little stubborn asshole, then it's important to understand how to argue when you argue too much. Attempt to structure your arguments in a productive way, leaving room for mutual, respectful conclusions rather than one fueled by selfishness. Obviously, if you go around and you want to win arguments and are confrontational for the sake of just wanting to be right, you're going to come across as an asshole, and you probably are one. Allow that conclusion to be a compromise of some sort. Or if you seek an apology because you feel like you've been hurt, or simply desire a deeper understanding of your partner or workplace wants and needs. I fall on that last one a lot. I really do ask a lot of questions and am combative because I simply desire a deeper understanding. I do not consider myself to be a very smart person at all, and because of that, it really does help me whenever I ask a lot of questions because as soon as I know the why about something, I I feel pretty much unstoppable in that thing. It's important to remember the reasons you've engaged in expressing an opposing view either before or during any confrontation as a way to make communication more effective and efficient. Being argumentative, coupled with an entire host of other personality traits, can amplify or make toxic combinations in a person. Personally, in the past, I've been way too harsh on myself for a trait that could otherwise be fairly useful. Nowadays, I'd like to say I've changed the more toxic aspects of being too argumentative, such as letting the emotions get the better of me during any kind of confrontation, or seemingly ignoring the other person and just kind of waiting for my turn to speak. Arguments happen to everyone, and it's easy to become overwhelmed by your own emotions, and in the heat of the moment, you can very easily miss when there is simply nothing left to argue, and you should hold your peace. You never want to take an argument further than it really needs to go. Remember why you're arguing in the first place. Sometimes you've argued all you could, and it's best to let things go. I found that the best way to resolve conflict has been to listen more than I speak. I know that seems simple, but truthfully, it's something that took me a very long time to understand.